My spouse and her relatives shut me out of our home during a snowstorm, chuckling through the window as I struggled against the cold. Feeling like a worthless fool, I took Andre and left without saying a word. 3 days later, my inbox was inundated with 47 frantic messages pleading for my return. You know that moment when you suddenly realize your entire marriage has been a facade? For me, it wasn't discovering suspicious messages or traces of lipstick. It was witnessing my wife of 5 years, high-fiving her brother through the frosted living room window while I stood outside in 15-degree weather, pleading to be let back into my own house. I, a 33-year-old man, have been married to Eleanor, 31, for over 5 years. The first 2 years were decent, far from perfect, but whose marriage is? The issues began when her parents' lease ended, and they required a place to stay for a few weeks. That was 18 months ago, and since then, it's been a gradual descent into chaos. Initially, it was minor annoyances, her mother rearranging our kitchen without permission, her father constantly critiquing our finances. Then, her brother Autumn, 27, lost his roommate and joined the party. Our 3-bedroom house suddenly housed 5 adults, and I felt like a stranger in my own home. I attempted to discuss this with Eleanor multiple times, but each conversation ended with tears, accusations of my lack of affection for her family, and the inevitable "but they're family" argument. Eventually, I stopped bringing it up, retreating to the garage or taking extra shifts to find some peace. I know it's not the healthiest coping strategy, but hindsight is always clearer. Last Thursday marked a turning point. A massive blizzard hit, one of those storms where the weather reports warn you to stay indoors to avoid disaster. I picked up an extra shift to earn some overtime and to escape the weekly game night with Eleanor's family, which mostly consisted of inside jokes I wasn't a part of. My shift ended at 11 p.m, and the roads were terrible, taking me nearly an hour to complete a 20-minute drive. When I finally arrived home, I noticed all the lights were on, which was odd for almost midnight. Ignoring my weariness, I trudged through knee-deep snow to the front door, only to find my key didn't work. I tried again, but nothing. I knocked, then knocked louder. Finally, I saw movement through the frosted glass, and the porch light switched on. Relief flooded over me, but that disappeared when I saw Eleanor's face. She wasn't worried. She was amused. I gestured for her to unlock the door, but she simply shook her head. Confused, I called her. She picked up but didn't speak. "The door's locked and my key isn't working. Can you let me in? It's freezing out here." Her voice, strangely casual, replied, "We changed the locks today." "What? Why would you do that without informing me?" I asked in disbelief. Autumn thought it would be funny. I stared at her through the window, waiting for the punchline that never came. "Eleanor, it's 15 with 2 feet of snow. Let me in!" Just then, her brother appeared next to her, beer in hand and grinning as if watching his favorite comedy. "Sorry, bro," he said loudly enough for me to hear through the glass. "No losers allowed tonight. Family meeting only." I stood there, shocked, looking at Eleanor, hoping she might say something to defend me or to tell her brother to be quiet, or even to open the door. Instead, she laughed. Actually laughed. Her parents appeared behind them, smirking. Her dad raised his wine glass in a mock toast. "Eleanor," I said, my voice trembling from both the cold and the anger. "This isn't funny. Open the door now. Maybe you should go stay with one of your friends," she suggested nonchalantly, as if asking me to pick up milk. "We're having a family meeting about the house situation." "I am family. I'm your husband, and this is my house too." Then Autumn leaned closer to the window, his breath fogging the glass, and uttered words I'll never forget. "Freeze to death, worthless idiot." Eleanor didn't defend me. She didn't look ashamed. She nodded and laughed, then high-fived him. I stood there for about 30 more seconds, my phone battery at 2%, my car running low on gas, in the middle of a blizzard the likes of which we hadn't seen in decades. Something inside me snapped or perhaps finally righted itself. It's hard to say. I didn't shout or bang on the door. I simply turned around, trudged back to my car and left. My phone died before I could call anyone. The roads had become impassable. I managed to find a 24-hour diner that still had power and sat there nursing coffee until morning, using their phone to contact my friend Brandon, who said I could crash at his place, no questions asked. The next 3 days were spent at Brandon's apartment, completely disconnected from my regular life. No social media, no contact with anyone. I needed time to think and process everything that had unfolded. By Sunday night, I finally recharged my old phone. 47 messages awaited me, not an exaggeration. 47 separate messages across texts, voicemails and DMs on various platforms. The first few were angry. "Very mature, Atlas. Stop being dramatic and come home. Mom and Dad think you're being ridiculous. Then came the concerned messages. Where are you staying? Just let us know you're okay. Followed by panic. Atlas, seriously, this isn't funny anymore. We've called all your friends. Please just respond. The most recent messages were desperate pleas. Please come home. I'm sorry. We were just joking around. Autumn feels terrible. Everyone's worried sick. My favorite was from Eleanor's mother. We never meant for you to actually leave. Please come back so we can talk this through as a family. As a family. The same family that locked me out during a life-threatening blizzard and laughed while doing it. I've never been the type to create scenes or make dramatic gestures. I've always been the guy who compromises, the one who tries to keep the peace, the guy who allowed his in-laws to take over his house for a year and a half without standing up for himself. But something shifted that night while I stood in the snow, watching my wife laugh at me through the window. I texted Eleanor back a single message. We need to talk. Meet me at Starbucks tomorrow at noon. Come alone. I spent those 3 days contemplating what I would say to her, what would come next, and how I had finally seen my marriage for what it truly was. I realized something crucial. Revenge isn't served cold. It's served calculated. Update 1. First off, wow, I didn't expect my last post to gain so much attention. My notifications have been going wild. Thank you all for your support and advice. Reading through your comments has genuinely made me feel less insane about this whole ordeal. Many of you asked about the Starbucks meeting and what transpired during my 3 days away. So here's the update I promised. When I left my house that night, my mind was a blank slate except for one thought. Don't let them see you break. I sat in my car for about 15 minutes, letting the heater run while I stared at my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I didn't cry or punch the dashboard. I simply existed. The roads were treacherous, like seeing abandoned cars in ditches bad. I found a 24-hour diner called Mel's that still had power. The place was nearly empty, except for 2 truckers and a waitress, who seemed to be questioning her life choices. I ordered coffee and sat in a booth, trying to process what had just occurred. My phone died around 1 a.m., which was probably for the best. I didn't want to see the nonsense Eleanor or her family might be texting. I remained there until sunrise, nursing the same cup of coffee for hours while the waitress, Josephine, kept refilling it without charging me extra. In the morning, I borrowed the diner's phone to call Brandon. We hadn't hung out much since Eleanor's family moved in. They never liked him, because he once called them out for dominating every conversation at my birthday dinner last year. Brandon didn't ask questions when I called. He simply said, "Come over." Doors unlocked. I'll make breakfast. Things got interesting while I stayed at Brandon's. I accomplished 3 critical things. 1. I got a new phone with a new number, but kept my old one to monitor messages without replying. The old phone stayed off most of the time to conserve battery since I didn't bring my charger. 2. I checked our joint account. Guess what? It was nearly empty. There was 370 TUB left in an account that had over 8,000 just 2 months ago. I looked through the transaction history and saw that Eleanor had been gradually transferring funds to an account I didn't recognize for months, totaling about $7,800 of our money that vanished. 3. I visited our bank branch to access our safety deposit box and secure important documents, like my birth certificate and car title. Thankfully, I had put these there before her family moved in, so they couldn't touch them. Brandon was incredible through all of this. He let me crash on his couch, listened to my rants, and helped me brainstorm next steps. He even lent me clothes since I had nothing but what I was wearing when I got locked out. On the second day, I went to work and spoke with HR about my situation, not for sympathy, but to ensure Eleanor or her family couldn't cause problems for me. My manager, Thomas, was surprisingly understanding. It turns out his sister went through something similar with her ex. He even offered to have security keep an eye out in case they showed up looking for me. I also met with a financial advisor to discuss separating finances and protecting what little I had left. It wasn't the cheapest consultation, but it was worth every penny for the peace of mind. On the third day, I finally turned on my old phone to see what was happening. The messages, oh boy. The first few were exactly what you'd expect. 9:43 a.m. Friday. Eleanor. Very mature, Atlas. When are you planning to come home? 11:27 a.m. Friday. Eleanor. Mom and Dad think you're being ridiculous. Autumn says he was just joking. 2:16 p.m. Friday. Eleanor's mom. Atlas. This behavior is unacceptable. Eleanor is very upset. Then around dinner time on Friday, the tone shifted. 6:32 p.m. Friday. Eleanor, where are you staying? At least let me know you're okay. 7:14 p.m. Friday. Eleanor, I called Brandon, but he said he hasn't heard from you. please just text back. 8:45 p.m. Friday. Eleanor, your work said you called in. At least I know you're alive. By Saturday morning, it was full panic mode. 7:13 a.m. Saturday. Eleanor, please answer. This isn't funny anymore. 7:14 a.m. Saturday. Eleanor, I'm worried something happened to you. 8:22 a.m. Saturday. Eleanor's dad, son, we need to talk about what happened. This silent treatment isn't solving anything. 9:07 a.m. Saturday. Autumn, hey man, I was just messing around. Didn't mean anything by it. Come home so we can sort this out. By Saturday afternoon, it escalated. 1:44 p.m. Saturday. Eleanor, we filed a missing person report, but the police said they can't do anything since you called work. Please just come home. It's 2:33 p.m. Saturday. Eleanor, your sister called me asking where you were. Did you tell her what happened? Fun fact, I didn't, but my sister, Dorothy, has always seen through Eleanor's nonsense. By Sunday, the messages came in every hour, increasingly frantic. 9:14 a.m. Sunday. Eleanor, please come home. I'm sorry. We were just joking around. 9:30 a.m. Sunday. Eleanor's mom, Atlas. We never meant for you to actually leave. Please come back so we can talk this through as a family. 10:17 a.m. Sunday. Eleanor, I love you. Please come back. I'll make this right. 11:45 a.m. Sunday. Autumn. Dude, everyone's freaking out. Just let us know you're okay. I'm sorry about what I said. The last message before I replied was from Eleanor at 2:17 p.m. Sunday. Eleanor, please. I'll do anything. Just come home. That's when I sent the Starbucks message. Now about that meeting. I specifically said, come alone for a reason. Guess what Eleanor did? She showed up with her entire entourage, parents, brother, the whole circus. When I walked in and saw them all sitting there, I almost turned around and left, but I decided to stay calm. I sat down, looked Eleanor straight in the eyes, and said, we agreed you'd come alone. She began to cry, of course, claiming she was scared and needed support. Her mother jumped in, stating they were all concerned about me and just wanted to help. I remained composed and asked one simple question. Where did the $7,800 from our joint account go? The look on their faces was priceless. Eleanor stammered something about emergency family expenses, while her dad attempted to change the subject. Autumn had the audacity to tell me I was being selfish about money at a time like this. I pulled out bank statements showing the systematic withdrawals over several months and asked again, where's the money, Eleanor? That's when she broke down and confessed her parents had been facing financial difficulties and she had been assisting them without telling me. Apparently, they had lost a substantial amount in some dubious investment scheme but didn't want to tell me because they knew I'd be critical. Her father then grew defensive, claiming I should be thankful. They were living with us because their expertise and connections were valuable to our future. What expertise? I thought, the man can't even figure out how to use Netflix without help. I didn't yell or create a scene. I merely slid a piece of paper across the table with 3 demands. Return all the money within 48 hours. They all move out of the house within a week. And Eleanor starts couples, counseling with me if she wants any chance of saving our marriage. Her mother actually laughed and said, we're not going anywhere. That house is as much ours as yours. At that moment, I played my trump card. I pulled out my phone and showed them the video. I recorded just before my phone died. The last minute of that interaction, a clear audio clip of Autumn saying, freeze to death, worthless idiot, and Eleanor laughing. I calmly explained that if the money wasn't returned and if they didn't move out, this video would be sent to every family member, friend, and Eleanor's workplace. I also mentioned I had already consulted a lawyer, an embellishment, but they didn't need to know that regarding both. The financial theft and potential charges related to recklessly endangering a life during a state-declared weather emergency. The Starbucks became very quiet. Eleanor was sobbing, her mum seething, her dad looking like he'd seen a ghost, while Autumn just stared at his coffee. I stood up, told Eleanor to inform me of her decision by the end of the day, and walked out. That was yesterday. This morning, I checked my account. $7,800 had been deposited. I also received a text from Eleanor saying her family would be out by Friday and asking if we could talk privately. I haven't replied yet. I'm still figuring out my next steps. However, I've connected with Eleanor's Aunt Dorothy, the family black sheep who had been pushed out years ago. She's been filling me in on the family's long history of similar behavior. There's much more to this story, including what I plan to do regarding the marriage itself, but this post is already lengthy. I'll update again after Friday, once I see if they actually move out. One thing is for certain. I'm never going back to being the doormat they wiped their feet on for years. The old Atlas who froze to death that night in the snow is someone entirely different now. Final update. The first thing I noticed when I returned to my house last Friday was that they had completely rearranged the living room furniture. Who does that on their way out? The couch was against a different wall, the TV stand at an odd angle, and my favorite recliner, the one Eleanor always complained about, was shoved in the corner like some kind of punishment. It was a petty final move, but oddly enough, it made me laugh, the first genuine laugh I'd had in weeks. Thank you all for the support on my previous posts. Reading your comments has been like having thousands of friends who actually care about me, something I clearly lacked in real life for quite a while. Anyway, buckle up, because a lot has happened since my last update. They actually moved out on Thursday, a day early, which immediately raised my suspicions. Eleanor's family never does anything ahead of schedule. They're the type to use every last second of a deadline and then request an extension. I asked Brandon to come with me to check the place first, just in case they trashed it or something. The house was weird, not destroyed, but definitely not how I left it. Aside from the furniture rearrangement, I found little surprises. The thermostat was set to 63 degrees. Eleanor knows I like it at 68 degrees. All the family photos had been taken down, but only our wedding photos remained. My PlayStation was still there, but all my saved game data had been deleted. So petty. The fridge had been completely cleaned out, not even a condiment left. Someone had replaced all the light bulbs with those harsh white ones I detest. Nothing worth calling the cops over, but definitely a passive-aggressive gesture on their way out. The strangest thing was finding a letter from Eleanor on the kitchen counter, not a goodbye note or an apology, but a detailed bill itemizing her share of household expenses for the past 5 years, with a note declaring we were even for the $7,800. I actually took a picture of it and posted it on my Instagram story, and the comments were wild. I texted Eleanor, asking to meet at the local park the following day, neutral territory. A public place, zero chance of her bringing her entire entourage again. She immediately agreed. When we met, she looked different. Not just sad or stressed, but somehow smaller, as if someone had let the air out of her. She started crying before I even sat down on the bench, but this time her tears didn't affect me at all. It's funny how that works. Seeing someone cry used to turn me into an instant apologizing machine, but now I just waited for her to compose herself. The ensuing conversation was surprisingly calm. She admitted her family had controlled her for years, but also acknowledged she had allowed them to do so. The money transfers. Her parents had invested in some dubious crypto scheme that tanked. They'd been guilt-tripping her for months about how they had moved in to help us, so we should assist them too. The night of the lockout was supposedly Autumn's idea of a loyalty test. He convinced Eleanor that I was too independent and needed to be put in my place. The lock change was meant to be temporary, just a lesson in respecting family hierarchy. Yes, he actually used the term family hierarchy. What is this, Game of Thrones? Eleanor swore she never thought they would keep me out all night, especially during the storm. She claimed she argued with them after I left, but lacked the courage to stand up to them when it mattered. I asked the burning question in my mind. Was any part of our marriage real, or was I just a convenient ATM and housing provider for her family? Her answer was complicated. She said she did love me, but admitted she had chosen me partly because I was stable and easy to influence. Her exact words. I knew you'd never say no if I cried enough. That hit harder than the lockout itself. In a way, I told her I wanted a divorce. She didn't seem shocked, just asked if there was anything she could do to change my mind. I said no. Here's where it gets intriguing. Remember Eleanor's Aunt Dorothy? Turns out she was ousted from the family for similar reasons years ago. She refused to let Eleanor's parents control her finances and life choices. I had only met her once at our wedding, and Eleanor's parents had ensured we didn't spend much time together. I tracked Dorothy down on Facebook and reached out. She filled me in on the family's long history of financial manipulation and emotional blackmail. What happened to me wasn't an isolated incident. It was their pattern. Dorothy suggested something brilliant. Confront them all together during their monthly family dinner. She had been reconnecting with some extended family members who were also tired of Eleanor's parents' manipulation but were too scared to speak up. So last Sunday, I showed up unannounced at Eleanor's grandparents' house during their monthly dinner, with Dorothy accompanying me for moral support. The expressions on everyone's faces upon our entrance were priceless. Eleanor's mom nearly choked on her wine. Her dad went pale and Autumn attempted to leave, but his girlfriend, someone I'd always liked, made him stay. I didn't yell or create a scene. I calmly laid out everything: the lockout, the stolen money, the years of manipulation. I played the video of them laughing at me in the snow, and then Dorothy shared her story, which mirrored mine. The extended family had no clue about any of this. Eleanor's grandparents were horrified. Her cousins were rapidly texting, likely updating their group chat in real time. Her uncle Robert stood up, saying he had experienced similar treatment years ago, but thought he was the only one. One by one, family members began sharing their own stories of manipulation by Eleanor's parents. It was like watching dominoes fall, years of pent-up resentment pouring out. The best part? Autumn finally cracked under the pressure and admitted that locking me out was a calculated move to push me away permanently. His girlfriend dumped him on the spot and asked if she could get a ride home with me and Dorothy. We, of course, agreed. Eleanor's parents tried to regain control. Her dad actually stood up and yelled that everyone needed to calm down and that I was manipulating the situation. Nobody believed him. Her mom attempted to blame Eleanor for mishandling the situation, but that backfired spectacularly. When Eleanor finally stood up to them, she declared she was done being their puppet and had lost her marriage due to their manipulation. She even threw her phone at her dad, stating she was blocking them all until they sought professional help. I didn't stick around for the fallout. I said my piece, helped Dorothy reconnect with family members who valued her, and left with my head held high. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, the divorce papers have been filed, and Eleanor didn't contest anything. I've completely redesigned the house, new paint, new furniture arrangement, and even adopted a dog from the shelter, a laid-back pit mix named Banjo who loves my recliner as much as I do. Eleanor's parents apparently left town to visit. Relatives, aka hide from family shame. Autumn was fired from his job for unrelated reasons. Karma's a funny thing. Dorothy and I have become good friends. She's been an amazing support. I've reconnected with friends I had drifted away from due to Eleanor's family. The weirdest part, Eleanor came by yesterday to pick up the last of her belongings. She seemed different, more like herself, whatever that means. She told me she started therapy and was temporarily living with her cousin. She apologized again, not to win me back, but because she genuinely meant it. For a brief moment, I pondered what might have been if she had found her backbone years ago. But that thought dissipated quickly. Some bridges once burnt should remain ash. It's been precisely 1 month since I stood freezing in that snowstorm, watching my wife laugh at me through a window. My life looks entirely different now, imperfect, with a leaky sink and my cooking skills still lacking, but it's mine again. I'm uncertain about what lies ahead, but for the first time in years, I'm genuinely excited to find out.